And okay, and action.
Exactly 1 year ago, we pressed upload on our very first video and began our journey of finding our way around our new home country. As a shooting location for that first one, we chose a place called Nonthaburi, the cradle of Central Thai cuisine and the historic city north of Bangkok along the Chao Phraya River. Throughout the next 12 months, we'd make a total of 48 documentaries, bringing us places we never imagined, taking us deep down unexpected paths, sometimes quite literally, and into the kitchens of some of the world's best chefs. But today, we're going back to the beginning. We're going right back to where it all began, to see old friends, to find some new incredible stories, and to look back on the beginning of our own.
My life as I knew it all of a sudden was completely thrown into chaos. And I remember landing in Bangkok and looking out the window of the plane and being like, I'm so excited. This has been on my list since we got to Bangkok, but there's never been an excuse to come all the way out here. The most random place in the Michelin Guide. I'm really excited about this.
When we decided to come back to Nonthaburi, it meant finally having a chance to visit a place that's been on my list since we moved here. It's called Fried Banana Rama 5, not because of the great old king, but because of the highway just to the north. And what it serves, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's fried bananas, a simple roadside snack somehow elevated here to a world-class level.
Yeah, this is kind of like how me and Daria first found our way around Bangkok before we even started the channel. When we were just getting on our feet, would just be like throw a pin on a map and then head out and start exploring. And so we're in somewhere that we've never been before, way out in the middle of Nonthaburi, and I'm gonna stop talking and start eating the world's only Michelin-rated deep-fried banana. Mm.
The secret to their magic is actually 3 components of something so humble. The first is the bananas. Fresh and local, and anyone will tell you that the produce from Nonthaburi is unrivaled anywhere in Thailand. The second is the seasoning, well salted and with toasted sesame seeds, and if you don't have enough batter on your banana itself, just scoop some more crispy deep-fried bits for free, take as much as you want. And third is their proprietary technique of spinning the excess oil off the finished product so it stays crispy, not greasy. It's honestly so much better than I expected, and a perfect way to begin our road trip back to Bangkok's neighbor to the north.
So nice to be back in the countryside. People are friendly, coffee's cheap. Really happy to be here. So yeah, I'm at a job site. We are almost finished with construction of a restaurant called Starling. This is our second location. It's a 1950s style American diner. The first one was so successful that was like all this years and years and years of hard work that I'd done in the restaurant business. Now we had this place that was a hit. And so as soon as we opened the first one, immediately start working on the second location. Things are going well. I've opened 4 restaurants in 9 months. Things are really as good as they can be, after years of ups and downs in China, and now it feels like things are kind of going in our favor. Daria is running a major beer company. Daria goes into the immigration office to renew her visa. I'm at the job site, and so I'm not really looking at my phone. And I realized that after an hour, I haven't heard from you. Still haven't heard from you. Now it's been 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So now I'm getting worried because there's always that small chance in the back of our minds when we go in to immigration that maybe someone's going to say no. Mm-hmm. So now I'm 11 years into my time in China. I've been there my whole adult life, more or less. You've been there for 11 years as well. You were, what, 19, 20 when you came to China?
I was 20, yeah.
So literally your entire adult life. And, you know, and then after 2-3 hours, I haven't heard from you. And finally, you know, what basically happened was Daria got the wrong agent at the counter who told her, more or less, well, your visa says that you're a business executive, but you're a Russian woman. That's impossible. If you're a Russian woman, that means you must be here illegally. And so they put her in detention and in a holding area, took your phone, dumped all your chat history, trying to prove that you'd committed some kind of fraud. I don't know any of this because they have her phone, so I'm not able to get through. After a few hours of this, they told you that you could not be proven that you were committing fraud because they couldn't find any evidence of fraud because there was no evidence of fraud. But you know what? That's okay. We know that you're here illegally. We're just going to kick you out. 11 years, just like that. So I had enough connections in Shenzhen that we were able to get 2 weeks. 1 week, 2 weeks. 1 week.
I think 1 or 10 days or something.
Something like that. And it's like, okay, 11 years, that's it. And it never even occurred to me, as tough as things got, and as much as everything sort of changed in China over the years, never really occurred to me that we would leave. We both speak Chinese, that was our home, our entire network was there. All of our skills and qualifications were China-based, you know, and then all of a sudden it becomes real. It's like, you gotta go. And you have to go now. And so the list of countries on no notice in the middle of a pandemic that would take an American, a Russian, and 2 dogs was Thailand. That was the list. So we arrived on November 21st, 2021.
We remember the date.
I think I remember incorrectly. 20th or 21st, 2021. And go to Dan's house. Dan and Michelle were friends from Beijing. And so Dan and Michelle gave us a bedroom to stay in while we got on our feet and figured out what we were doing. And I just remember being so overwhelmed. Like, my life as I knew it all of a sudden was completely thrown into chaos. Then I remember landing in Bangkok and looking out the window of the plane and being like, what did we just get ourselves into?
It was a curfew time still. And when we were landing, it was all dark, pitch dark. One of the biggest capitals in the world. Dark, black. That was terrifying.
It took us about a month after we moved here to really get settled and start finding our way around the city. And I couldn't tell you when we both realized that there was more to Bangkok than we thought, but it was pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
The first day, Dan took us to get our cell phone SIM cards to Mega Bang Na. And I remember just finding some random place for lunch and being like, oh, this is amazing.
The best pad krapao we've had in our lives.
In our first 6 months in Bangkok, because we'd come here on no notice and still had our work back in China, pretty much all we did every single day was just go out and explore. Drop a pin on the map and start walking.
I truly don't know what we're gonna find next. And, but you see somebody selling homework on the side of the road and you get it. Hey, it's not far wrong spicy. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah?
As it turns out, there are a few places on Earth that are as rewarding for just throwing yourself into the chaos as central Thailand. As when you start to ask questions and try everything, you find yourself unraveling 100 mysteries with 1,000 backstories, and few are as fascinating as what we found here in Nonthaburi. The city's main wet market occupies more than a square kilometer next to the Chao Phraya, on a site where a market has existed in some form since the 1600s. Now, the very brief backstory is that when Ayutthaya was under siege by the Burmese, the king built a fort here, and then commissioned a project to reroute the river for easier access to the capital. When the canal was dug and the path of the river shifted, it exposed the soil and sediment from under the water, and that soil was so rich in nutrients that this area became the most famous for agriculture in the entire empire. Migrants arrived to work the land, coming from China, from the Malay Peninsula, and from the Mon states in Myanmar. The settlers would bring their own cultures and traditions, and before long, a cuisine would develop where some of the most iconic Central Thai foods would first appear. Things like tom yum soup said to have first been made in old Nonthaburi. Now, the market in its first days was on the water. I mean, so was everything in the early years of the kingdom. But around 1910, it moved onto land where it still sits today. And incredibly, it's barely changed since then. Here, it's like stepping into a time warp. You can still see things like bicycle rickshaws, ancient dishes, and hand-picked produce, and honestly, I can't believe it's been a full year since we've come here to film in this city. It's a cliche that Southeast Asia's wet markets are one of the best parts of coming to this part of the world. The sights and sounds and general atmosphere makes for incredible photographs and a feeling of being somewhere exciting and mysterious. But stripping away that mystery, well, that's where these places get really interesting. Like here, just by looking at some of the dishes sold, we can start to unravel the story of Nonthaburi. There's this. A pastry made from flour, sugar, and duck eggs, something we found in one of our first videos in an enclave called Kudijin, a dish created in 16th century Ayutthaya by the Portuguese, who adapted their pastries to available local Thai ingredients. The Portuguese were invited as mercenary soldiers, and they manned the front lines in battles against the Burmese, and while we have no way to know this for sure, it's almost certain that they'd have been among the first sent to man the newly constructed fort at Nonthaburi. And this, an ancient dish of sticky rice with pork, dried shrimp, peanut, and ginkgo, made by steaming in a woven basket with flavors straight from southern China. It was, of course, the southern Chinese who dug the canal that rerouted the river, and they were among the first settlers to establish a home here outside the walls of the fortress. And then this, a shop dating back to at least the first days of the modern market, somewhere renowned all across Thailand for making legendary curry pastes straight from the Malay Peninsula, like an old-school masaman and plenty of versions of Bang Kwang, the foundational base of Thai red curry.
I keep doing this today. Everything I try is just amazing. I was a journalist, right? So my background was, I was a reporter. So I used to be a sports play-by-play guy. I was a news anchor. I hosted a talk show. I was a journalist. That's all I ever did in America was journalism. And that's the reason why our channel sort of is the way it is, because that's my training. That's all I studied. That's all I did. That's how I learned how to use music appropriately and things like that, right? And
you were on the radio being.
I was. It's true. Have to hit the hook, right? We used to hitting the hook. But like in 2008 financial crisis, I lost my job, and then lost another job, and the media industry was completely decimated. 2008 financial crisis. Had a girlfriend at the time, couldn't get a job, so she came to teach English in China. Purely blind luck, she applied for jobs all over the place, got one in a city that I'd never heard of called Shenzhen. Long story short, she left and I stayed. And so
I'm nodding as if I'm hearing this story for the first time.
That's
Seriously.
But so that was December 2009, and then came back full time about a year later, and it was Chinese food that made me want to stay. And I had this ambition when I first moved there that I was going to write the first English language cookbook of authentic Central and Western Chinese food, Sichuan, Hunan. I cooked in kitchens in Hunan. I realized after a while of working on this book that you need money to live. That without a job, this is not a viable idea. So I had a friend who was opening a restaurant in Shenzhen. Got a job cooking in his kitchen. God,
why are you giving me your hardest challenges?
If you fast forward 10 years to about the time that we left the country, food was a job. It went from something that had driven me to uproot my life and move to the other side of the planet to becoming a job. It was what I did. And I was good at it. I opened a lot of restaurants, had some success in the industry, but I, a long time ago, had stopped remembering that I was ever really passionate about it. And coming here and not having to be in a restaurant and being surrounded by not even just Thai food, everything. The Arab quarters you mentioned, the Sri Lankan restaurant. We live in an area where there's a lot of Japanese.
Yeah, perfect Japanese food.
The izakayas everywhere. The food, not Thai food, but food. We completely fell in love with it again, and for me it was remembering why I came to Asia. It was remembering why I moved to the other side of the world. It was really falling head over heels in love with food again in our first few months in Bangkok. And I didn't want to open another restaurant, because the minute you do, you live at your restaurant. That's the only thing I'm qualified to do, is run restaurants. But I just didn't want to be cut off from exploring. I wanted to keep living the life that you and I were doing in our first 6 months in Thailand, and not being stuck in one place. And that's sort of where the idea for the channel came from, is how do we keep finding this stuff? How do I not ever go back to taking food for granted? How do I have this feeling forever of falling in love with what people are creating, what people are making? And it's been...
So all this Leo Tolstoy War and Peace introduction was just to say we like food.
We like So my best friend since I've been in China was a guy named Chris in Shenzhen, more recently in Shundai. And Chris and his wife, Steph, who I've known since literally within about 12 hours of when they first met in 2015, Chris and Steph have a channel called Chinese Cooking Demystified, which is probably the biggest English language Chinese food channel on the internet. When I had this idea of doing a YouTube channel, I was almost nervous to bring it up to Chris, because it's like my best friend in the world is so successful at it. Now I'm going to tell him, like, hey, I'm going to follow in your footsteps. When I brought up to him the idea that I would do this, hey, I think I want to try and sort of start this. Do you have any advice? And his response was like, do you know how happy that would make me? If I have somebody we can actually talk about the difficulty of this business and all this stuff together. And then Chris and Steph moved to Bangkok in June last year, and that was around the time that we started filming. So the very first time that we ever filmed an OTR video here in Nonthaburi, as a matter of fact, Chris and Steph were living in our house. And having them to break down film with, to tell us what we were doing right and wrong, and just to keep encouraging us, to go for it. And having Chris being honest, being like,
he was very honest.
Because my reaction was like, oh wow, this is amazing. We made something great. This is going to be huge. And Chris was like, nah, it kind of sucks. And like having them be completely honest with us was so, that was, I think, as important as anything else in the entire process of making the channel, was having Chris and Steph move to Bangkok.
Yeah.
And having friends who are professionals in YouTube encouraging us to do this. And then having Daria being able to support us, as we've been very poor for a very long time, because this is not a lucrative thing to start. Thank you for having a job.
Breadwinner.
It's been an ongoing refrain since we started the channel. The story of food is the story of people. And that applies to things like the market, where we can see the history of central Thailand through the dishes on offer. But it's more than that. Maybe the coolest part of exploring our new home is finding people who are using food for more than just turning a profit. Although, as someone in the restaurant industry, there's nothing wrong with that either. But food is also how immigrant communities hold together and how refugees can find a sense of home. It's something that can call attention to good causes and can even turn around the roughest neighborhoods. And one of the main reasons we wanted to come back to Nonthaburi is that it turns out that here, there are people using food for something perhaps even more ambitious than anything else we've ever covered here on the channel. Hiding in plain sight in the center of Nonthaburi, just a few steps away from the ancient market and around the corner from the pier and the museum, there's a building that from the outside is kind of unassuming. And it's not unless you look a bit closer and you notice the razor wire on top of high concrete walls that you start to sense that maybe this isn't like the other buildings in the old neighborhood. Because right downtown, standing in this spot since the days of Rama VII, well, it might be the most notorious address in the entire country. This is Bang Kwang Central Prison, but it's better known as the Bangkok Hilton, or to locals, the Big Tiger. It was built in 1931 to house the country's worst criminals. And behind the 2 layers of high walls topped with electrified razor wire, there are 14 buildings that together make up Thailand's most infamous prison. Inside those walls is the country's only death row, and a place that not long ago was one of the most dangerous and overcrowded penitentiaries on Earth. Now, Thailand might be the land of smiles, but it actually has some of the world's most draconian laws and punishments. And although the country's population ranks 20th globally, the number of prisoners is actually 6th, as high as 375,000 incarcerated in 2020. In the early part of the 2000s, a tightening of drug laws led to such overcrowding that more than 8,000 people were crammed into cells built for a quarter of that number. Conditions were inhumane, with inmates sleeping wedged together on concrete floors and with leg shackles welded onto each prisoner. And with guards outnumbered 50-1, Bang Kwang earned a reputation as among the world's most grim and violent facilities. It's still a place that you don't want to be, but in the last few years, the Department of Corrections has made strides in alleviating some of the problems. And with recidivism rates, in other words, how many criminals released from jail end up arrested again, as high as 33%, administrators knew they needed to be creative to find ways to rehabilitate inmates, not just lock them up. In the late 2010s, another Thai prison, this one in Ratchaburi, outgrew its footprint and moved to a larger location next door. The old building was no longer needed, so the prison's commander had an idea. What if he could do something with the space that would give those incarcerated the chance to learn some skills that might help them on the outside? So he renovated the old jail and turned it into a restaurant, one intended to be fully staffed by inmates getting close to release. The public was supportive, reviews were positive, and recidivism dropped. And soon the national government proposed expanding this idea across the country. Plans were made to build as many as 40 prison restaurants, and while that development was slowed by COVID, today there are 8 locations open of a chain called Cook and Coff, as in coffee, all staffed by prisoners, including here, right across from the entrance to the Big Tiger. Maybe the reason this place is so successful is that it's not a prison experience. There's no shackles or barred walls. It's just a restaurant, and honestly, it's pretty good. It's not hard to imagine that every single day, at least a handful of tourists wander in here, get a coffee, and leave without ever having any idea what this place actually is. As someone in the restaurant industry, I'm impressed. It's a well-run place. It's friendly and inviting. The food is creative with fun stuff like this, lab mu pizza. And with the kids' playground and the scenic river views, it's almost enough to forget that when the shift is over, the waiters and cooks and baristas don't get to go home and binge watch YouTube. They go back there, inside the walls of Bang Kwang and into an unimaginable environment. But they do it knowing that when they do get out, there's a life waiting on the outside. One that hopefully provides a path to something better, at least for those who do get out.
We chatted with somebody on our way out. The heavy part about this, all the feel-good stories about prisoner rehabilitation. Still, a lot of the inmates here at Bang Kwang are serving life sentences. This is actually Thailand's only prison with a death row. And I think until the mid-90s, they were firing SWAT executions here in this prison. And we met a gentleman who came up and wanted to talk to us about the channel. Couldn't have been nicer, spoke good English, and he was telling us about his son, who's incarcerated for life. He's been in prison for 4 years already, and he has a life sentence for a drug offense. And it's heavy when you see the people who are eating here. It's not us. It's not people like us who came out here because they think this is cool. that's the entrance gate. That's the visitor gate right there. So most of the people who are around us who are eating here are visiting family, you know, who are in custody, and it's a subject that we have to explore in its own video. This isn't something that we're going to go too deep into now. It's a major tonal shift from, you know, where this video started, but you know, when we're this close to it, we had to come and see it. And I'm really happy that we did. Yeah, it's an interesting subject to explore that we'll have to get more into.
There are days when everything just breaks your way. Like finding a golf cart rental place in Nonthaburi on a blazing hot summer day while we're walking around with heavy camera gear. Maybe they were confused by the sight of us, but nobody even asked my name. No ID was checked or deposit taken. $14 later, I guess we owned the thing.
So there's one golf cart that they're like, oh, this is perfect, but it only has 3 wheels, so that one's not perfect. Let's go with it. We gotta wait out the rain anyway. Welcome back to Nonthaburi. Sorry, Daria.
The first OTR video, the one that we're revisiting today, was complete chaos. I mean, none of us knew what we were doing, but it was a ton of fun. It was also not my first attempt at launching the channel. I've never talked about this here before, but a month before we filmed in Nonthaburi, I actually attempted to tape an OTR video at a cult compound known as Santi Asoc. I assembled a crew of serious pros, like Netflix-level producers, and we spent all day filming, and I invested pretty much everything into it. And the video was a catastrophe. I mean, if you imagine how boom goes the dynamite level bad something could be, that was this. And it was entirely my fault. See, the thing about hiring a professional team is they expected me to be a pro too, and I'm a cook. And they're looking at me for direction, and I just couldn't do it. Now, that video will never ever see the light of day, although if enough people ask, I might throw it up at least temporarily on our Patreon. Anyway, I wasn't even sure I'd try again. I mean, that's how badly the first shoot went, and my confidence was shattered, and I actually started looking for restaurant jobs. But Daria and Chris and Steph kept pushing, and Dan went as far as to put an ad up on Facebook looking for a videographer who really wanted to throw themselves into a project like this, and didn't mind that I didn't know what I was doing. Dan got an answer from a young producer who had his own food YouTube channel, and a month after that first failure, along with Dan and some guy named Jasper, I was on the road to Nonthaburi to try again.
Dan, do you want to direct us back to Queen of Boat Noodles?
Is it up here on the right?
It's up here on the right. Do you want to pin it real quick? It
Kind
should
of
be
quick up on the right.
purple
yeah.
flags on the right, I think.
Yeah, so this is the market that we came to that first time.
It is, it's right. I haven't been back here since we filmed. This is my first time back here since we shot that first OTR video. All right, it should be this. Daria, be my turn signal. Can you point to the right that I'm going to be doing a U-turn? Remember, you and I, we were in a Facebook chat together, you and Jasper. And I would roll my eyes like, I would hear the sound of like somebody calling, and I would just do this, and it would be Jasper, and he'd be like, you guys convinced me, I'm into the idea. When can we start? When are we doing this? When are we filming? And this happened like 2 or 3 times, and you started harassing me about this, like, dude, can we just do this? Can we just film? You've got Jasper's ready, I'm ready, can we just go tape somewhere? And the only one who wasn't ready was me. I was the only one who was just like, well, I thought I was ready last time, and it was a disaster. So I don't know. But just to get you guys off my back, I had an idea that Daria hated. it was on my whole list of videos that I'd planned. There was one that I thought was going to be great. And Daria kept telling me, she's like, that's not a video, it's not a video. And it was about the American diner.
Yeah.
Because the guy was in Wisconsin. I thought that's kind of a cool reveal, this guy learned. And to me, that was like the entire plan for the video, was just to go to that diner. And Daria was convincing me that she's like, you gotta have more than that. That's not a video by itself. No one's gonna watch that. And she was right, obviously. So that was gonna be my idea with our first shoot together, was to throw one away. To be like, well, if I'm not ready, let's just do one that'll never air, just to get you guys off my back. So we went to the diner, and immediately something kind of clicked where it just started working. We found this golf cart rental place. You know, Jasper has this habit of just filming everything. This is the second time I ever met him was when I showed up to film with you guys that day, ever. And I come in, he's got like all of his gear, he's setting it up. He's like, all right, let's go. He's outside just taking B-roll of everything. And I'm like, okay, all right, it's out of my hands now, and I like that.
I remember when I thought to myself, I was like, this guy's gonna be really good at that, like what we wanted to do with it. Was actually at this market that is just down the road here, like the first market shot that we did. And he would come and just like put the camera right where someone was cooking. And like all my traveling, I never had the to just go and like put the camera in front of something interesting and not be like, hey, is it okay if I, you know, like.
We had so much fun that day that even if that video hadn't come out very well, and I think it did come out well, considering we didn't know anything, we were making it up as we went along. The edit process on that was really gratifying. I feel like me and Jasper kept looking at each other like, oh, maybe we have something here. But just the act of filming that day was fun. You know, I enjoyed it. Everywhere we went, we enjoyed. We had some good food. You know, it was a fun experience, and I couldn't wait to do it again. The second one we ever filmed was at Thailand after that. And I remember getting to that shoot. You couldn't come to that one. You think you were in the States or something. But I remember getting to that shoot at Thailand and having this thought in my head of like, I know in time, if this channel succeeds, this will be routine, but I hope I never forget how much fun this is. You know, because it's fun. It's like, that was the overwhelming feeling of that first shoot when we were out here a little bit more than a year ago, was just enjoying doing it. It was fun. That's another memory from that first episode. Daria, if you can come over here for this part, Daria is with us today. And Daria's been along on almost every single shoot we've ever done on OTR.
Yes,
sir. Thank you. But not the first one. She was here with Chris and Steph, just hanging out eating boat noodles while we were driving around in the golf cart, filming. And so because Daria wasn't along with us filming that day, I had nobody. You look at Dan. Dan's a big American guy. I'm a slightly less big American guy. Jasper's a big Thai guy. None of us had the instinct to tell me that when I take my hat off, I looked terrible. So I was wearing a hat, I took it off to film. I watched that first video.
Have done it right
dude,
now too, by the way.
I was, well, now you see. So without Daria here to tell me how bad I looked on camera, and Dan's like, you look fine. You know, and like, so first of all, I wore a shirt that might as well be pajamas. I had the shorts on that don't really fit. I looked like Bill Parcells, like the shorts are a little too tight, so I had the big hips. My hair I did not look, and I'm watching this later, I'm like, it's a cool video. I look like shit. Daria, from now on, you need to come just to save me from myself, if nothing else.
I did, starting from video number 2. Mildly, step by step. You didn't even notice how I incorporate myself in the routine.
The raw material is not great to work with. You're doing the best you can with what you have. But yeah, that was one thing I learned from that video for sure. I get how great the food is in Thailand. And there's nothing that I like more than going to places on the outskirts of Bangkok or the villages in the countryside and seeing the places outside the city. But I am from Virginia, and there's nothing that will stop me from starting my day with a proper diner breakfast.
Yeah.
came here to shoot, you were already setting up the gear, and the rest, as they say, is history. Who are you? Introduce yourself.
I am the filmmaker for the show. You know, I'm the guy who's behind the camera. This time it's Dan, and he's doing a great job.
We think we haven't seen it yet.
No, I'm sure it's fine. Yeah, and yeah, I guess I am the other part of the channel that you don't really see.
But who are you?
Jasper.
What was it that made you reach out?
Funny, because I wanted to make this kind of show myself, but I had no host because, you know, if I'm holding a camera, who else is gonna hold it, right? So I thought, well, I'm just gonna have to get a tripod and try it myself. I was literally about to do it myself and be miserable, and be prepared to be miserable about it. And then Dan came and was like, "Hey, I liked your video. You wanna talk about stuff?" And I was like, "Oh crap, sure. What are you guys doing?" And Dan was like, "We're doing food." I'm like, you know, that's crazy.
I love to watch our old videos, not because I'm watching it being like, wow, I'm great, but because it's so intense, our weeks where we film for a full day and then we break down tape and then we do sometimes 7-8 drafts of a video, right? That to me, I live in that world for a week. Like I have no life outside that world for 1 week. For 1 week, my life is curry pots. You know, my life is pechaburi. You know, my life is Santier sock, my life is fried chicken, whatever it is. For that 1 week, I'm living that video. You know, it's really cool to me to watch an old video because I kind of get to remember the journey. You know, I get to remember like, you know, all that week, living in that world for a week. And I love it. I love like, I did it recently with the Portuguese video. And I'm like, the fun thing about coming here is we haven't been back. Almost none of our videos have we ever gone back to those places since because we're always on to the next video. But everywhere we film is somewhere that we love.
You have to go vicariously back to not only, like you said, not only to look at the food and look at the story, but also your own personal mindset, right? And your own like headspace, where you were back then. And to be able to look at you, it's like, yeah, to be able to have like this unique time capsule that you get to have.
I want to say, first of all, after a year of this, you know, to everyone who's watched this video all the way to here, thank you, you know, for being the reason why we were able to do this. And especially I want to thank the people who've been supportive of us on Patreon. That is financing this shoot today. Honestly, that's so much more important than I think. Like, it takes a while to ramp up to being the size where you can survive just by, you know, making content on YouTube. So for the people who have not just given us your love and support, but also your financial backing, that is the reason why OTR exists. And if you are able to do that and you would like to lend your support to us, I can't promise that there's much we can give you in return. I've tried to make extra content for Patreon. We have our Discord server. We just don't have any time, and we're a tiny team. You see our whole team today. You know, this is it. And 98.8% of the work is just the two of us. So with all of that said, thank you, you know, honestly, and can't wait for what the next year is going to bring. I have not been excited. I've not been as excited about something in a very long time as I am about, you know, doing this. I think this is the most fun project I've ever been associated with. I'm incredibly proud of what we've done. Great to work with you.
Thanks.
Excited to see how much better both of us have gotten at what we're doing since this started. Can't imagine how good we'll be in a year. Time for you to start working on the CGI stuff.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Dan's arm is about to fall off holding the camera, so we're gonna go ahead and cut it there. And anyway, as I said at the beginning, nothing will keep me from starting my day with a proper diner breakfast. Nice work, man, great year.
Thanks, you too.
Yeah. What the f? Am I in neutral? It's fun, right? Like, somehow back in a golf cart in Nonthaburi.
Yeah. We should do this every year.
We should do this
It's
every
like
year.
a yearly trip out to Nonthaburi.
All right.
Thanks to everyone. There it is.
We brought it back in one piece. Thank you.
So I see you're cutting your pancakes into bite-sized pieces, guy. You've done this twice now, Adam.
You what?
You've done this twice now, Adam. You're cutting my pancake into bite-sized pieces, guy.
Me?
Yeah.
I've done it twice? What do you mean? Oh, from last time?
Yeah, no, fair. Yeah, exactly.
I know how to eat a pancake. What do most people do? Just pick them up?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just
You don't cut them like pizza though, you cut them piece by piece.
Is it
No, I do it top to bottom.
Government tax. Coming for your 40%. I would have ordered that.